locomotive Nosda was made in 1900. It was still working yesterday, shunting in the yards. Today, it is going into retirement, into the Technical Museum in Prague. It founded a famous dynasty of CKD steam locomotives. The heavy mountain tender engine of the 524 series is a reminder of the First World War. The 4230 engine is a real diehard. The 464 series. As long as steam traction remains, the heaviest industrial 525 locomotives will continue to operate. The 4560 locomotives won the Grand Prix at the International Exposition in Poznan in 1930. Handsome mountaineer works best in hilly country. The last member of a dynasty of steam locomotives is this tender engine of the 4770 series called the Parrot. Stately and dignified, it brings to an end the glorious age of CKD steam locomotives. The factory has turned out a total of 4,200 steam locomotives ranging in horsepower from 20 to 2,000. In the new age of diesel locomotives, the designers have so far developed 14 basic models. The T4783 is number 15. The team of designers who have received an award for outstanding work is preparing the last details of this new project. For the basic series of variations calculated in the computing center of CKD Praha, the designers choose the best designs for the main operating parts of locomotives and power units. The traction engines are subjected to long load tests in the testing hall. They've been able to cut the size of the traction engines of the new T4783 locomotive in half. Slowly, the RPM climbs to the maximum, 3,000. Locomotive BOB will have 1,800 horsepower. In the test hall for driving sets, the diesel rail engines and the traction hydraulic gearboxes undergo extensive trials. The results will be included in the overall evaluation of the operational characteristics and the choice of the best combination. These are determined in operating conditions for the new diesel hydraulic T4784 locomotives, which will be 1,800 horsepower. While new models are being prepared, CKD Praha's manufacture of locomotives in big series continues without interruption. Top quality castings are the beginning of every locomotive. Here in the foundry, they are casting the working parts of locomotives and separate power units. The main frame of the locomotive consists of several welded parts. Welding the parts on a positioner ensures that the weld is of best quality and consequently that the frame of the future locomotive will be strong. Wheel sets without axle box guides make possible the swing arms that are typical of CKD Praha locomotives. The swing arms are worked up on fully automated single-purpose machines. CKD Praha's own locomotive development staff designed and built these machines. While the locomotive's other mechanical parts are being made, the production of the electrical traction equipment goes on. Balancing equipment for exact balancing of every rotor. In another CKD Praha plant, the locomotive diesel engines are made and assembled. After it is fully assembled, each driving set is lined up with a fuel circuit and run for a 50-hour test. This engine is being turned over for the first time. Its basic performance measurements are obtained. The engine has reached 1,300 horsepower output. Assembling a locomotive is done in 5 steps. The first, the intermediary gearbox is mounted on the main frame. Step 2, the diesel power unit. The van. Step 3, assembling the cooling system, the nose and upper superstructure, and the auxiliary drives. A fuel tank with a 6-ton capacity gives the locomotive a great operational radius. Step 4, 2 3-axle bogies are being readied on the assembly line. 2 cranes carry the completely assembled top of the locomotive over onto the waiting bogies. Weight, 80 tons. Putting the locomotive together. In the assembly pit, the traction engines are linked with cable bundles. Step 5, putting in the diesel fuel, the oil, water, and sand. Every day, a CME3 locomotive leaves the shops. It is still in its basic coat because it must still undergo running-in tests. The first trial hours are spent running the new locomotive against resistance. They are checking the electrical values, testing the machine capacities, and the functioning of the auxiliary circuits. The present CME3 locomotive has 1,350 horsepower. Future models are planned with 1,800 horsepower output. The locomotive has passed all its tests. It wears its final coat of paint as it leaves the gates of the shops for delivery to the purchaser. The factory has different track gauges so that it can manufacture locomotives for practically the entire world. Model T4782 is being subjected to long-term operational tests on the 8-mile test track circuit. This new diesel hydraulic locomotive has an 1,800 horsepower engine. Its equipment includes a heating unit for delivering heat to the train. A measuring car uses complicated tests on a prototype of a new model. The crew watches the recording equipment. Major interest is centered on characteristics of the traction and heat balance of the power unit. CKD Praha is constantly developing something new in motor locomotives. Its future locomotives will have 3,600 horsepower. The smallest of the CKD Praha locomotives works equally well in mountainous country and in factory sidings. It climbs the steepest grade. The diesel hydraulic locomotive T3340 has 410 horsepower. It is for light to medium heavy shunting service. It is easy to handle, has low axle load, and is dependable. T4781 series locomotives have proved themselves in heavy hauling operations. They are turned out in series for domestic and foreign buyers. ČKD Praha makes the T4781 for local and express trains. The locomotives have 1,500 horsepower. The Soviet Union is the biggest buyer of ČKD Praha diesel locomotives. The green CME3 and the blue CME2 are in heavy tonnage and passenger transportation. ČKD Praha locomotives work in all climates. The CME3 was developed for unusually difficult conditions. It can operate for a whole week without refueling. The CME3 is a worthy representative of Czechoslovakia's transport engineering industry. C0C0T679 series locomotive has electrical transmission, 2,000 horsepower, and a heating unit. It is delivered to operators in big series. Stroy Export supplies ČKD locomotives to 14 countries on 3 continents.